beginning, sort of tying into the history a little bit as well. The opening lines, we have different versions, so it'll be interesting to see if there's a significantly different translation. Might bring out some nuances there. But mine says, warfare, just the opening lines of chapter one. Warfare is the greatest affair of state, the basis of life and death, the way is Tao, the way to survival or extinction. It must be thoroughly pondered and analyzed. And that ties into the fact that this was a period in history where there were multiple states and they were just at war. That's like how they existed. They fought over land, they fought over resources, and they fought over um, who had the right to rule. And they just took that as a given. That was the world that they were in. He says it's the greatest affair of state. There's none of this pretense of like, oh, we're a peaceful society that the outside world has forced war upon us and we didn't want it. It's like, nope, we're here to be at war. This is our life. This is part of life. And I think that that's one of the things I've learned looking back into multiple sort of ancient civilizations is that was their life is war was just war was there. No, people were at war, war happened. It's not this like Rousseauian primitive era where people were peaceful and wars being forced upon them. They did not look at themselves at all. You could say, oh, that's further back. But anyhow, where this is coming from, that's the world that they're dropped into. It's a world of war.
So I just want to actually make a contrast now. Um, do you feel like the necessity for war was specific to that time in regards to survival for everyday people and accumulation of resources, access to resources, where as opposed to now it seems like warfare is not in the interests of people, right? I don't think it necessarily really ever is, but to what degree is it more of an incentive for those in control of the nation state to continue a perpetual cycle of war rather rather for special interests rather than just for defensive purposes because you have an enemy at the gate. And that in this version it says the art of war is of vital importance to the state. So we're seeing the general theme kick through, but it's different wording, and of course that can bring a different interpretation of it. And so yeah, let's continue, Rob. Let's
So, yeah, I think today what we're seeing, I think there's two main things I'd point to. One is our societies are much, much bigger. So we we have the luxury of being on like the inside rather than being at the border of society. And this big inside of society in general is like shielded from war. Like we see it on the TV, but we don't have to experience it, or at least we like to think we don't have to experience it. And I think that that can lead us to an idea of war is just totally unnecessary. Why can't everyone just do exactly what we're doing without the connection of we get to do this because we're in the middle of a defended large society? Um, and then a second portion of that is that we are in a period of time where there's a global consensus, more or less. And we're worried about it breaking down, but we've lived in an era of close to 100 years where it's like, nope, the border lines are drawn, you've got your spot, you do your thing, everything's set and settled. So there's not as much of a view, there's not as much of a call to conquer anymore. I think if we were living in any other time where there is a lot of chaos, a lot of sort of open territory, even if it's technically occupied by other people, if you're not in communion with them, you don't recognize them as a civilization, then you're just like, well, that land out there is not being used for what it should be used, being our civilization. Therefore, its land to be conquered. And so we're sort of stuck in the middle where there's been a global movement, like the global status is set, at least temporarily. And then there's the globalist movement of like, oh, what we need is to sort of solidify that and totalize it and make the global state so that so that everyone will be on the inside and you won't have those borders and you won't war over things. And I think that gets sold to a lot of people who are in those insulated insides and have that view of like, oh, war is not necessary. So that's where I see the modern connection or disjunction there. But that's not to say that this text or I believe that war is a good thing, because Sun Tzu repeatedly says war is not good. You don't want to be at war. You want to do all you can to avoid open conflict. And if you do go into open conflict, you want to finish as quickly as possible. So that's true. It's just also true that as humans and the world exists, I don't know, now and throughout history, war is going to be part of it. Something big has to change before that actually changes, and it's not enough just to be in the middle of an affluent society and completely ignorant of the problems on the peripheries and just saying everything's good. Why can't we all just get along?
Interesting times that we're in, because if we're still predominantly motivated by warfare and we haven't necessarily reached a position to where we can cease that activity and kumbaya, band all as humanity and move forward, the means of destruction through technological advancements and the various ways now that you can have complete annihilation and destruction by just the push of a button, as opposed to, you know, conquest, warring, it's and without the necessary emotional development of societies. We've had this kind of illusory evolution technologically, and we think that we're such an advanced uh representation of humanity in history, but we're essentially the same. We're essentially the same. We can just kill each other in many more ways, a lot faster, and with more with more explosions.
Yeah, I don't think war is like our goal or part of our nature, but the way that our nature works leads to war. Like I have certain desires, you have certain desires. If we represent two um like polities, two nations, we might get along great for generations, but then eventually we're going to have conflicting interests. And the question is, how do we accommodate each other and how do we work across those conflicting interests? But some interests conflict so much that it's just like it just unfolds into war. That's like war is conflict, right? It's a degree of conflict. It's a large degree, it's an extended degree, but it's not just, oh, we are motivated by war. We are motivated by a lot of different things, but when we conflict over those, because there's other people in the world with conflicting motivations, war comes out of that. So it's war is just a part of the world because conflict is a part of the world. But conflict isn't always war, but it can lead to war.